What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my continuing film talk series. Today we're going to be talking about an all-time classic Western that I just watched for the first time last night. The movie is Once Upon a Time in the West from 1968, directed by the master Sergio Leone. I had grown up watching some of Sergio Leone's films, but this one has escaped me up until now, and I'm so glad that I finally watched it. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the major one that I grew up loving, and it's still one of my all-time favorite movies. Today, it came out in '66, so Once Upon a Time in the West came out just 2 years after, in my opinion, his magnum opus masterpiece, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I'm definitely a little biased since I've just grown up loving Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So maybe if I would have grown up with Once Upon a Time in the West, it would have made that kind of imprint on me, because when it's all said and done, Once Upon a Time in the West is a masterpiece or a near masterpiece. Once Upon a Time in the West is about a widow whose land and life are in danger as the railroad is getting closer and closer to taking them over. A mysterious harmonica player joins forces with a desperado to protect the woman and her land. Now, with most Sergio Leone movies, the plot is actually kind of secondary in my opinion because he is such a visual filmmaker. I mean, the first 20 minutes or so of the movie just has pretty much no dialogue. He's just conveying information and story through looks, through angles, through people in a frame. That is Sergio Leone in a nutshell, if you ask me. He just conveys tons and tons of visual information. He's just the perfect visual storyteller. The cast of this movie is excellent. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but it stars Claudia Cardinale, also with Henry Fonda, Jason Robards, and Charles Bronson. Bronson plays a mysterious character who walks around playing a harmonica pretty eerily, and his character's name is actually Harmonica, and I think he's the highlight of the movie. Fun fact, Clint Eastwood was originally offered to play harmonica, but he refused because he did not want to be typecasted in any more of Leone's spaghetti westerns. But I'm not that sad about it because we needed something different. I mean, Clint Eastwood did 3 other movies, so Charles Bronson came in and did it perfectly. In the fantastic opening sequence, there's a moment that is pretty shocking because you see somebody kill another person, and the camera pans up and it's revealed to be Henry Fonda. Fonda playing against type because he was always cast as the morally upstanding citizen of all of his early movies. Now, I've been going through a lot of Henry Fonda's filmography the past year or two, and honestly, I have been getting a little tired of him always playing the good guy. It just gets kind of stale because he's always playing like the same character. So this was just a breath of fresh air for me to watch this and see him as a nasty villain. I don't know if he ever played a villain again, but I sure hope he did, because this was just like a breath of fresh air for me. I could not help but compare this and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly because they are really similar. They're both big, epic spaghetti westerns from Leone, and they're both from the '60s, so around the same time that he was creatively pumping these out. And this one feels a lot slower and methodical than The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly had a lot of action sequences, just amazing big set pieces, and this one feels a little bit more dialed back and more character driven. There definitely are shootouts and moments that happen that are exciting and are action filled, but for the most part, it's a lot of slow building kind of scenes where it reveals information about the characters and leaves you little Easter eggs, and some secrets are revealed in the amazing climax that Sergio Leone has been building up to. The overall themes this plays around with is a lot about masculinity and a lot about the Western ways dying out to civilization. There's a whole lot to talk about this. I could do another video about that, but this is both a thematically rich movie and just a visually incredible film to witness. Like most Leone films, definitely his westerns, if you were a film school student these are the movies you need to be studying if you need help with composition, blocking, framing of a scene. Visually showing the audience information is such an important part of being a director, and I don't think there is anyone better than Sergio Leone. At the end of the day, this movie just blew me away. I'm sad I haven't seen it until now. I wish I grew up with it because it would definitely be like at the top of my list. But on rewatches, I'm sure this movie will just keep getting better. The character you see here on the screen is Jill, and she's played by Claudia Cardinal. And she is in a lot of, well, at least one the film 8½, which I haven't seen, and she's in Fitzcarraldo from Werner Herzog. She's in The Leopard. She's in a lot of famous movies. This is the first movie I've seen from her. I'm really excited to see more from her. She was pretty amazing in this movie. Guys, there's so much to say about this movie. I could talk all day about Sergio Leone. If you haven't seen Once Upon a Time in the West, do yourself a favor and finally see it like I did last night. This guy is just one of the greatest directors in the history of cinema. I only have 3 movies left to see from him. I need to see Once Upon a Time in America. I need to see another Western, the last Western I haven't seen from him, called Duck You Sucker. And he made a Roman epic called The Colossus of Rhodes, which is probably his least well-regarded film, but I cannot wait to see it nonetheless. Here is my current Sergio Leone film ranking. I've updated it since last night when I watched Once Upon a Time in the West. Number 1 obviously has to go to my all-time favorite Leone so far, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Then, at a close number 2, Once Upon a Time in the West, this movie blew me away and automatically moved into number 2. Then number 3, we got For a Few Dollars More. I like it a little better than Fistful of Dollars. I think it has a bigger scope and some better action scenes. And then A Fistful of Dollars, which is still an amazing movie. All 4 of these are highly recommended by me if you have not seen them. If you want to keep up with movies that I watch or see any of my written reviews, you can follow me on Letterboxd at DMartsFilm. I would love to follow you back if you want to come check out my page. One last thing to add before I go. The score composed by Ennio Morricone, I think I'm pronouncing that right, but he's a super famous composer. He did a lot of other Leone westerns and other things. Is absolutely amazing. It's both a beautiful score and a haunting score. It's way different than the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly score. That one's really twangy and iconic, and this one is just meant for just pure villainy. It's amazing. One of the best scores I've ever heard in my life. It made the movie for me a little bit, but you have to expect a great score when you watch a Leone film. Okay, I think that wraps up my film talk on Once Upon a Time in the West. I highly recommend this movie. It's a masterpiece or a near masterpiece of cinema. If you haven't seen it already, get to watching this. If you haven't seen any Leone films, you should just watch any Leone film, but if you have and haven't seen this one yet, put it at the top of your watch list.